We're back, baby. It's the Charity Stripe. Pitch your free throws because they are free. Daily Stripe, Wednesday, May 31st, 2023. It's the end of your birthday month, dude. It's over. Sorry to tell you. Breaking news to you.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that until you just said it. So there you go.
It shows you how much you care. End of May means end of baseball. We hit on that yesterday. And just really, just to hit
End of baseball.
end of baseball of the month, meaning end of 2 months of
Okay.
baseball.
Got it.
Sorry,
Got it.
got some brain fog today, but we're powering through. To cross our T's, dot our I's from yesterday, I really just want to reiterate how amazing the season's been so far and how exciting the new rules and the implementation of the new rules and all the players buying in. No one's complaining, and that has been something. The fans aren't complaining, the players aren't complaining, and there was getting to be some sort of rift I felt amongst the players. We saw Bryce Harper trying to make things fun again. Trevor Bauer back in the day when he was in the league, he was one of the guys who was trying to add spice and add flavor to the game, whether you agreed with it or not. The way his antics, that his efforts were there. But the way the game has grown now, you're seeing a lot of young guys come through across the board who are performing excellently. You're seeing a lot of the superstars who should be having good years have good years. You'll see a great home run race as it stands right now in New York with Alonso and Aaron Judge. I'm very curious. Honestly, that's a great storyline for me. Like, can you remember I forget his name. It's escaping.
Like who can be the king of New York kind of situation.
Yeah, do you remember?
I mean, obviously it's always gonna be the Yankee. It's always gonna be Judge. But
Mhm.
if Alonso does outbomb him and hit more home runs, he can start making that conversation and amplifying that narrative, which we know that Pete Alonso is a guy who falls in the same vein as guys that you mentioned prior, like Harper, who trying to bring more media attention, more spice, more kind of charisma. Sometimes they take the heel approach, and I think he's no stranger to that. He doesn't mind kind of being the heel, but he's the polar bear. Like even just the nickname adds some level of interest, I feel like,
Sure.
from MLB fans.
Yeah, and for me, Pete versus Judge, Long Gone Summer was the name of, I forget who we interviewed. He directed it. I gotta look it up. But it was, remember that McGuire versus Sosa home run
Yes,
race?
yes. Yeah. I'll look it up too.
Do you remember how
That
excited when we watched? Yeah, you got it. Look it up, and I'll just vamp. I mean, you remember how exciting it looked when we were watching that documentary and just researching it? And to me,
AJ
like,
Schnock. AJ
yeah,
Schnock. Yeah,
really
yeah.
smart dude, great guy. To me, if we can get into like mid July and both of these guys have 30, which is not unreasonable. Judge has played less than 50 games. He's got 18. He's on a tear, and Alonso's leading the league with 20 home runs in 56 games. So between now, I mean, there is the All-Star break. Between now and let's say July 20th, let's say both these guys have 30. That means they'll have August and September to get into the 50s. It may not be 60 something or 70 something, but it's still going to be very exciting to see these two behemoths in New York duel it out to be the home run champ. And as it stands right now, it's shaping to be that way. There's other guys who, again, the home run still is the most exciting thing. And I think with stolen bases being up, with games being up, I think it's also helping the home run become more exciting. You're not just sitting there waiting for that play or nothing, right? There's other plays happening on the baseball field that elevate the game and elevate the interest of the fans. And so in turn, the home run has been, has even been grown to be a greater feat in baseball, in my opinion. But there's other guys, I mean, who are challenging. You brought up Matt Olson yesterday. I brought up Jorge Soler. Muncy in Los Angeles is bombing away. Alvarez, who your pick was, I think he was your pick to lead the league in home runs. Alvarez.
Yeah, he was at the beginning of the season.
He's at 14, so he's 6 behind. He's top 10. There's a lot of guys. I mean, Ohtani, obviously, Trout in the mix, who was Nick's pick. There's a lot of guys who are having awesome seasons, and the power numbers are still there. The on-base numbers are up. Batting average right now, I mean, look, it'll go down. We have 15 guys hitting 300, Like, that's pretty solid. Last year, we finished with 11. We finished with 11 guys hitting 300. The highest batting average was 326. Guys will go down, but Freddie Freeman, Bo Bichette, and obviously Arias, all above 330 right now. And so I honestly wouldn't be so. I would like those
Shout
three
out
guys.
to Masataka for your squad out there hitting over
Yeah,
300.
Macho Man's hitting 313. He's raising his average. There's one of the more interesting trades of the offseason I felt was, and we can kind of dig a little deep before we get into some hoops and some NFL and games. And Kyle, we have a lot to cover today. But Dalton Varsho was traded from the Blue Jays, from the Diamondbacks to the Blue Jays for Gabriel Moreno, who was a top catching prospect, and Lourdes Gurriel, brother of Yuli Gurriel, who has shown serious flashes of potential, but has never really been a superstar. And Gurriel is flourishing in Arizona. He's also one of the guys hitting above 310. Austin Hayes in Baltimore. Adley Ruxman gets all the love. Mullins gets a lot of love, as he should. Santander gets a lot of love, but Austin Hayes has been phenomenal. And then Rizzo, like, you want to talk about, lack of shift, how that's helped Anthony Rizzo. He's raised his batting average. I mean, last year, again, it was what? It was 224. He hit 32 home runs. It was 224. Now he's hitting above 300.
Yeah, but he's not really sacrificing that much of the pop. He's still got 11 home runs. So
yeah, exactly. So he's put together another, return to All-Star season. There's been a Brandon Nimmo again. He received a massive contract, and some people are like, is he worth that 9-figure amount? And I think he's proving to be in that range of a 9-figure guy. He's been everything as advertised for the New York Mets. So not honestly, outside of Knicks Padres, who won last night and picked up a win, I'm not disappointed with anything or anybody in the season. Like even Julio Rodriguez, who everyone thought, he's making the jump, was a player of the week last week. Super slow start. Player of the week.
Needed it big time.
Yeah, needed it big time for sure. Braves, every bit as advertised. Dodgers, ditto. I do think the Pods will crawl back in some capacity. These guys will hit. Once Machado gets back, particularly, I think it'll come to fruition. Really, honestly, outside the Padres and the Phillies, there's been no real disappointments. And I could be forgetting stuff off the dome, but there's been no real disappointments.
Just I've mentioned them a few times over the last few weeks, but the Guardians have been a disappointment to me. I mean, that was a team that I picked to win the AL. And I was trying to get a little fancy with the spices, but it was mostly just looking at that division and thinking that, okay, if they can top the Twins, they can have a favorable kind of position going into the playoffs and make some noise. And they've got good pitching. They've got solid hit. Like, they've got a complete team, but they're just not getting it done either. But obviously the expectations were not quite as high as the Padres were. It's still the glooming or the glaringly obvious choice there of biggest disappointments of the season. But Tatis had 2 home runs last night, didn't he?
He's been phenomenal on the way back.
He's playing well.
He's playing really well. What did he do last night? He hit 1, but Soto was 2 for 3 with, no, he didn't homer. I think that was the other night, 2 nights, a couple nights ago, but he had an RBI. Soto had 2 RBIs. Carpenter, who's hitting 184, the ageless wonder, but he had 3 ribbies, which is, again, and they got to their bullpen, which is great. Their bullpen's been pretty solid. But I do want to say that with your Guardians, or not your Guardians, but the pick of the Guardians, like, Bieber's been good. Like, he's not been bad, but he hasn't strike enough guys out. His strikeout numbers are grossly down. Logan Allen's been good. Cal Quantrill has been terrible. Class A's been solid, but not the best closer in baseball. And then they lost Tristan McKenzie, who was supposed to be their number 2 behind Shane Bieber. He'll be back. But Ramirez, not great. Ahmed Rosario, not good at all. Andres Jimenez has been so disappointing. He has a plus to work. He's such a good defender, but offensively, he's been absolute trash. And Quan, Bell, Josh Naylor, like, their lineup just isn't hitting and not producing enough. And so this Guardians team is just leaving a lot to be desired in the run score department. I think, where are they in the AL? They are 3rd to last. Oh, sorry. No, I lied. They're in last.
Yeah, it's tough.
They are behind the Oakland Athletics in runs scored. So, and their their differential is minus 36. So a little brutal by the Guardians. But outside the Guardians, I guess we'll include them in there. We'll lob them in there. And Guardians, Cardinals, like they weren't World Series contenders, or maybe they sneaky contenders, but I don't think they're in with the Phillies and the Padres. Outside of those four teams, no players have really been disappointing. So it's been very exciting to see this baseball season. Let's kick it to the NBA, dude. Finals hit tomorrow. I was reading an article. I've been reading a few articles, but one article I found so interesting was how this Nuggets team was constructed. Do you know this? You know the story of Jokic in the draft?
Which one?
The
Few stories.
one there's a few stories. Obviously, the Taco Bell story, him being drafted during a Taco Bell commercial, is the
Not really a story. That's just like a fun fact.
Tip of the iceberg. But he wanted to pull out of the NBA draft.
Right.
And rather go in the 2014 draft, he wanted to go in the 2015 draft, where he probably would have gone higher because he stayed after he was drafted, played in EuroLeague, put up his best numbers by far. He probably would have gone higher and been a first round pick in the 2015 draft. Denver was the team that convinced him to stay, and they took him in the second round. There was Yusuf Nurkic, who's a fine basketball player, off injured, but fine basketball player, was there. Jokic wanted to go to the bench because they were playing the two of them together. It wasn't working. Jokic wanted to go to the bench. They said no. They shipped Nurkic off to Portland, which was a great decision by them. And they had a pick swap with the Knicks that ended up going to the Raptors. So in 2016, they had the right to swap the Knicks pick, which was ultimately in the draft, the Raptors pick. And
which was part of the
Melo
deal, yeah.
Part of the Melo deal. And that player they selected with that pick was Jamal Murray, who went later than anticipated in that draft. I thought that was pretty interesting. So that's how they got Murray. And Michael Porter Jr., who was the number one recruit coming to college. Many people forget
going
that.
To Mizzou, committed to Mizzou. Number one player out of high school. Got hurt
and fell.
Drastically
Not at the end of the lotto.
Decreased his bumped his stock for sure. I mean, I think that was at the time, it was still a risky pick though. There was a lot of upside, obviously, because I think most people knew what he could do from a shooting standpoint. But at that size, could he be a good rebounder? Could he defend and be a versatile defender that you could throw against, opponents' 3s, 4s, maybe even 5s? We didn't really know at that time. I think one thing that's really impressed me thus far in this playoff run from him has been the rebounding. The rebounding has been there. And he still hasn't really gone like nuclear in any of these games, which maybe that's inbound against the Heat at one point where he rips off where he goes 7 for 10 from 3 and he has a near 30-point game. He might have to. I mean, if they are really, really game planning heavy against Jokic and they decide, okay, we will not let this guy beat us, guys are going to have to continue to step up. And obviously something that Murray's been doing the entire postseason. But yeah, I mean, they took chances with each one of those picks, but they also knew what they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those are three guys that very much play basketball together and play it well together. and their skill sets make sense, right? You have the big who can create. You have the guard who can bring the ball up, who's got a great handle, ball on a string, but can also run a pick and roll with your best player, your big man. But they can switch roles in that, right? Like Murray could, honestly, Jokic could get a screen from Murray. Murray could slip it, and he's a really good slasher. You can pop Jokic, you can roll him, you can do so many different things. And then if the defense collapse in the paint, when you do dish it to him on a roll, that's when Porter Jr. is out on the wing or in the corner to hit the 3. And that's when KCP comes into play. And then Bruce Brown just adds another element of variety, right? Because what he kind of became in Brooklyn was another guy that can take that roller spot and do a lot of different things with it. And he was really dangerous with that floater back in Brooklyn when he would roll, catch on the roll, They had to make a decision, and he would either drop it down to Claxton, which has now become Gordon, right? The weak side dunker spot on this team is Gordon. They just, when those 5 guys are on the court together, they have a lot of different options. And then, like I mentioned, if it's not KCP, then it becomes Brown. And then you just have guys that play good basketball, like Jeff Green. The core was there, right? Those 3 picks that you laid out. But these other pieces, as we've mentioned in conversations past, have changed, right?
Mm-hmm.
They've been tweaked. It was Jeremy Grant, who looked really good on that team. He
left.
He left and got the contract with Detroit, and then was playing all-star level basketball. I don't think he ended up making the all-star team, but he was averaging over 20 points. He's once again had a good season in Portland. They kind of unlocked him. Barton, I think, dealt with some bumps and bruises, some injuries, so they shipped him off. Same thing with Gary Harris. Neither of those guys could stay healthy. In Barton's defense took a big step back, so they opted for a guy that was a surefire defender in KCP, Aaron Gordon, and they bring those guys in. But they were able to get them. KCP's value is never going to be just, ridiculous where a team
They
can't
they traded Monty Morris and Will Barton for him.
Yeah. Well, again, like I think Barton going into that trade is not the same Will Barton from 3 years prior, but Monty Morris had really stepped up in the previous 2 postseasons. And at times, because Murray was out, he was one of their, secondary or tertiary offensive weapons that they had to rely on outside of Jokic, undersized too. So, I think they were happy to move off of him, happy to move off of Facu Campazzo. Not that those guys weren't, helpful pieces for this Nuggets team, but Bones Highland, if you go and look at that, like they bring back Reggie Jackson, who hasn't played much in the playoffs, but they lost a lot of the lack of size that they didn't have, or that they used to have rather. So I just think that it's been really intentional every single step of the way, and they deserve a lot of credit. And Malone obviously being there the whole time, but Jokic and Murray and Porter Jr. all running together now for 5+ years, like that makes a difference. And we see it on the court, but you have kind of the same conversations about the team that they're facing in the finals. The consistency is there from this team as well. And the intentionality behind the roster creation. The Miami Heat know exactly what type of players they are going after to build their roster. And we've seen it with Harrow going down, with Oladipo going down. Guys are ready to step up, but the guys that are ready to step up, they add a new flavor. What Martin does is different than what Oladipo does. What Gabe Vincent does is different than when Tyler Harrow does.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that when Tyler Harrow comes back, they're going to be any worse. It's just they know their guys so well that they know how to manipulate their lineups, their roster, their defensive schemes. Saw them run more zone. They've run more zone this season than any team in the NBA has in the last 20 years. Now, I don't know if that's going to work against Jokic. My thought is, okay, they've been doing that the entire season. We might not see them run zone at all. They might have Bam manned up on Jokic the entire game. I don't know. But just the trust that Spo and Pat Riley have in their team and the intentionality behind it is what makes, from a pure basketball standpoint, this one of the most interesting and fascinating series that we've seen in a long time. Then add in the narratives of, okay, Jokic he's won 2 MVPs of the last 3 years, but he hasn't won a finals. He hasn't been to a finals. The Nuggets haven't been to a finals. The Miami Heat have been to the finals 2 out of the last 4 years. Eastern Conference Finals 3 out of the last 4 years. So
seven since 06.
7 since 06. I think now Spo has tied Pop for how many times he's been to the finals. You have to check me on that, but I think that's true.
Just not as the head coach, just as any. Well, he has 5 with Duncan, and he didn't have one before, did he? Did the Spurs go to the finals without Tim Duncan? And they lost to Miami once.
They've appeared in the NBA Finals 6 times: 99, 03, 05, 07, 2013, 2014. Yeah. I mean, we're talking about the guy that's acclaimed to be the best coach of all time. Like, for a lot of people, at least in our generation and maybe 10 years older than us, like undoubtedly the best coach of all time.
No, I think Spo's in there. I think you can make the argument that Spo's better than Kerr. Like
Maybe.
Kerr walked into like a really
Well,
both walked into real both walked into
that's
very
not
strong
that's
situations.
not true. Spo didn't walk into that. He coached 2 years before he got LeBron, Wade, and Bosh.
That's true. So he was gifted a very good situation. But I think what Spo has done in there, I mean, there was a time where people wanted him fired. You remember that?
Yeah.
People wanted him out. Like when they lost to the Mavs, even before then, they were like, this is not the guy for this job. And they stuck with him even after they lost that finals. He came back, won 2 in a row, went back and lost to the Spurs for Timmy D's last. And then now with this new iteration of the Miami Heat, this team is literally outside of Jimmy Butler. There's been no major splashy free agent signings. This Denver Nuggets team, there's no splashy free agent signings. Like every guy's been traded for, honestly. Like the Gordon and you can look at the Gordon deal, like, wow, okay, it was like a first round pick, RJ Hampton and something, but nothing, Gary Harris, right? Gary Harris was in that deal. Like that's not like
It had to match the salaries. Yeah.
but that's like not nothing. That wasn't at the time nothing to give up. Like that was like okay, RJ Hampton could be really good. Could be.
But clearly they knew exactly what they were doing. It was basically a swap for a first round pick. I mean, I don't want to diminish Gary Harris like that because I actually think that maybe over the course of the next 3 years, like he could become a contributor, like an eighth man on a competitive playoff team because I think he still has that in him. I really liked him at Michigan State. He's a good shooter. He's a little undersized, but he can defend pretty well against other guards 6'4" about. But which is wild that I say that's undersized now, but that's just kind of like the modern NBA and how big
He
some
would
of
have
these
been good
guys are and how
he'd have been
athletic.
good in Phoenix. Like he would have
Yeah,
helped
they could have
Phoenix.
really used Phoenix. They should look to try and get him and acquire him. If the Magic don't want to kind of keep him in that locker room as more of a veteran presence. But yeah, I mean it's a great trade. And you don't know it at the time, like you say. And there were still hopes for RJ Hampton, but we've seen guys like that come in before. And how different is he from Frank Ntilikina? Like realistically, they're both really athletic. I would even say like at least the one thing you knew that Frank had, RJ didn't have, right? He was kind of the offensive version of Frank Ntilikina, where Frank had the D, but he didn't have the offense and he didn't have the shooting. RJ had the athleticism and kind of the slashing ability. Didn't quite have
Yeah.
the shooting when he was coming in. Didn't really have the defense either. But unfortunately, it hasn't really panned out for him for becoming who we thought he could become. But a good move by the Nuggets. A really good move. And Gordon has been playing the best basketball of his entire career. And more importantly, he's just the right guy for this offense, for the fit with Jokic.
Yeah.
And he allows them to move away from having to pair Jokic with another 7-footer, but because he still gives you that versatility defensively, but he's a better shooter than a lot of those other big men are. He moves so much better than them, but he still has the same vertical ability to get to the rim and challenge guys defensively and offensively. So, yeah, I mean, like I mentioned yesterday on our show, I'm really interested to see what the Heat do defensively because they have a clear size problem. They had a size problem against the Celtics, but now it came out that Rob Will was sick in Game 7, so maybe that's why some of the minutes were less in that game. But he showed some really efficient flashes, and just want to point out that like there's not many bigs like Rob Will with his vertical ability and what he can do. He's not the same. He's a bigger guy than Gordon. He is a true 5, but we saw him get a lot of work done in the paint when Al was out there, when Tatum was out there. And if Bam is the primary defender on Jokic, do we see a lot more Zeller minutes in this series? Do we see a lot more Kevin Love minutes in this series? That's kind of how Spo has played it thus far, as he's been very matchup dependent in his rotation and his minutes allocation. Martin played 35 minutes a game in the Eastern Conference Finals. He hadn't played more than 28 minutes per game in the previous 2 rounds. Now, I think maybe for him, it's like, okay, this guy's a different player now, so you have to play him 30-plus minutes every game.
That's the beauty of what they have. They get to ride the hot. They have so many guys. Okay, who's the hot hand? I'll ride the hot hand until it's not hot anymore. Like if it's Gabe Vincent this series, great. If it's Strus, if it's Caleb Barton, like the way they're built is, and Love, Lowry. You think Love and Lowry, like where am I? They're years
No, they're
past
ready to
where.
go. I mean, look at Lowry. The shots that he hit. He hit that really tough turnaround, the fadeaway at the elbow, which was like at a crucial point in the fourth quarter against the Celtics. Those guys are ready to go. Always.
I want Kevin Love to be a coach one day.
Do you?
Yeah, the fact that he knew this, everyone know if you people thought he was nuts for leaving Cleveland. People thought,
Yeah,
like,
we need like a good expose
what do you,
on that
what do you do?
decision.
Yeah, like you're leaving Cleveland with Garland, Mitchell, both All-Star level players, Defensive Player of the Year candidate Mobley, Jaron Allen's a former All-Star playing great basketball. Like the Miami Heat might not even make the playoffs. They're a play-in team. Like why would you leave the Cleveland Cavaliers to go to the Miami Heat where your minutes are not going to be that much better? And he wasn't like a dominant force by any stretch of the imagination in the Eastern Conference Finals, yet he made the right move. I would an expose on why he left Cleveland, like a real deep dive
The
on why he left that team
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it would be great.
The answer at the time was he wanted to play more minutes. Um, I mean, look, I think while the move is happening in the buyout market, like of course, as we often are, like prisoners of the moment. The Heat did get to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. They were the number 1 seed. The Cavs, this was the first real year where they blossomed, right?
Yeah, but
And
they were blossoming. They that was like, dude, like that was last year though. Like you said earlier, like why is Marcus
no,
Smart
no,
talking about last year? Like that was last year when they went to the Eastern Conference Finals. Like
no, I know,
Cleveland team
but
was
not
better.
much changed from a roster personnel standpoint for the Heat. They have Eric Spoelstra. It's not like Kevin Love doesn't know what kind of coach even though he hasn't been in a locker room with him before,
He's been in a
he
locker room
understands.
with LeBron.
Right. And he's really good friends with LeBron. So maybe there was a conversation there. I don't know. I'd imagine if there was a conversation there that we'll probably hear about it this series from LeBron because he's got to chime in and get some sort of imprint on this series, even though he's not actually on the court. But I guess my point is that like Kevin Love saw this Cavs team the last 4. He knows what they are. He knows what every single one of these guys in the locker room is. He knows what every single one of these guys is on the court. And that doesn't mean that he doesn't believe in them, but he might not believe in them right now. And I think clearly if that was his sentiment and his thought process, he would have been right because they were not ready. And they are too young and they have a lot of growing to do before they can truly contend. And he trusted, the vets, the guys like Lowry, the guys like Jimmy Butler. And he was like, all right, I might as well just like, if I'm going to take a crack at this, because of course he doesn't know, right? Like
No, yeah.
Everyone loves to be like, oh, I was certain about this. I was certain about that. Even the players, of course, the media, but for a lot of it, you never really know. I do think it was interesting. I was listening to Ryan Russillo's pod yesterday. He was talking about how 10 out of 10 times, if this is your matchup in the finals, he's always going to pick the Nuggets. No matter who the team is, whether it's the Heat or whether it's some other version of an 8 seed. And I get what he's saying, but I will say, and some of what he was pointing to was like, look, like things that we've talked about before, the point differential in the regular season for this team, like they almost lost to the Bulls in that second play-in game. They were down 10 points in the fourth quarter and came back. If certain shots, fall a different way, like maybe the Heat don't even make the playoffs, of course. But it's all circumstantial. And at this point, I think we can be honest with ourselves enough to know that teams in the playoffs are different than teams in the regular season. And especially a team like this, who has been there before, who has that pedigree, who has that veteran presence in their locker room, a guy like Udonis Haslem, who guess what, has been there for every single one of those finals appearances that Spo has the entire time. They basically got 2 coaches in that locker room, amongst other guys. Chris Quinn, who's the most tenured assistant coach, who unfortunately, the way that the coaching carousel is breaking down, might not even get a head coaching position. But he will then be a very, very highly sought after candidate going forward. But I just think, okay, what's their point differential now? Right? Like, how is this team shooting from 3 now? How effectively and efficiently are they playing offense now? It is a completely different team.
Yeah, I mean, we said it yesterday
It
that
doesn't make it less amazing, though. What they've done
but
is amazing.
they were a bottom 4 team with some crappy teams and player missed games. Like they missed a lot of games. Their players missed a lot of games.
Right.
And Russillo needs to rewatch Miracle if he's picking a
Which
team
he
10
which he
out of
noted.
if he's picking a
He
team 10 out of 10 times, he's got to rewatch the Herb Brooks speech, which we would gladly show him. If you would come on our show, Mr. Russillo, we'll send you this as a preemptive.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to him about it.
Yeah.
No, I think it's funny. The only Believe host that correctly predicted the finals breakdown was Anthony DiNardo, the Believe in Heat host. Go check out his show. And of course, Chief Believe officer Braun Husenstam commented on his tweet being like, "I told you so." And Braun was like, "Yeah, I mean, it's a homer pick, but way to go." Which, like, it is a homer pick, but Anthony believes, and I believe as well. I know I said when we made our predictions yesterday that they're going to win. I need to really like watch one game.
Yeah. I'm not ready to.
But I'm not going to be disappointed if either one of these teams wins, which I feel like is great to not have any horses in the race on this one and just kind of like watch objectively. Which I'm interested. Are you in that same boat, or because they knocked you off, would you like to see the Nuggets and Jokic win?
No, I'm always in the same mode as you. It's like I need to see a game before I'm really gonna like call this thing.
No, but who do you want to win though?
Oh, Miami.
Really?
Yeah, Jokic will get back. He'll get back. He'll get back. This is this is it, man. I don't know how many more times Butler can do. I want Butler to get one.
Okay, but
I know
this is the same with the Celtics too, and the mindset behind keeping Jaylen Brown. If the Heat come into next season with the exact same team, if the Celtics come into the NBA season next year with the exact same team,
I don't think they will. I think Brown might go.
Sure, but just play hypotheticals with me.
Sure.
Who's better than either of these teams?
Milwaukee.
Okay, fine, but they very well could lose Middleton. And then are they still better?
Yeah, they'll replace him.
They're better than Boston. They're better than Miami.
Dude, what showed you? Yeah, I mean, yes, but what showed you about Boston? You're like, oh, I'm like stoked for this team. Nothing. Like, honestly, as the more I sleep on it, the more I'm like, I've seen 3 trades for Jaylen Brown. Someone threw 3 trades out.
Okay.
They threw the Portland deal out.
Sure.
Simons and Brandon Miller for Jaylen Brown.
Oh. Interesting. Okay.
Which I really don't hate as much as I want to hate it. I don't hate it as much as I want to hate it because guess what? If we do that, we get to keep every piece around Tatum, and we get a young Brandon Miller.
Who like might end up being better than end up being better than Jaylen Brown. Like we don't know.
Could be.
He's a wing.
He can shoot.
And he can defend.
I saw the Karl Anthony Towns swap. Which, again, like, I really wanted to hate it. I really wanted to, and I saw some BS.
If that's what you're going in, you might, if you're getting Cat, you might have to trade Marcus. You might have to trade Marcus and tell either Derek White or Malcolm Brogdon, look, our offense is going to look completely different next year.
Why does Marcus, just out of curiosity, why does Marcus, in your mind,
let me, and one of you two guys, Malcolm or Derek White, and in that position, I'd probably pick Malcolm based off of his past performance and how he plays, and say, you are our point guard. You are the point guard of this team. Malcolm now would be coming into his second year with the Celtics. The first year, it's hard. Like you're playing with guys that have played together a while. Rob and Marcus and Al and Jaylen and Jason. You can't come in there and be the point guard of that team. Marcus Smart's the point guard of that team. But guess what? Marcus Smart doesn't bring the ball up every single play. He doesn't facilitate offense. He turns into a catch and shoot wing guy when they were playing the offense that they played this season. So I think rebranding the offense, and obviously when you add an offensive piece like Cat, adds a total variety of it. But I think it has to start with, you can't say, okay, we're running point Tatum with Cat. I think you have to go, Malcolm, you are our point guard. You run the offense. Tatum, you're going to attack off the wing a lot more. There will be possessions where with 10 seconds left, we get you the ball at the top of the key or, 25 feet from the basket. We run a pick and roll with you and Cat and you go make something happen. But I just think they have to completely rebrand and restructure how they play offense.
I think okay.
And I
So
think if Marcus is on the team still, it's forced that he has to be the point guard or at least like the identity point guard of the team.
So who's more valuable to you, Cat or Jaylen Brown?
Jaylen, because of durability and
Okay.
because he's been deeper in the playoffs.
So what about Cat?
And versatility defensively as well.
I think the deal was then, I think it was Jaylen and Grant Will for McDaniels and Karl Anthony Towns. Which
I think Grant Williams is just going to sign somewhere else. I don't think y'all are going to be able to.
So I would do Jaylen and such, Pritchard, some other things for Cat and McDaniels, and I'd be okay with that. Then we needed size. Like we needed size in there. And I don't think the Gobert Cat thing is working. I think Cat could be gone regardless, honestly.
Yeah.
I think Cat could go for the 3rd overall pick.
The 3rd overall pick?
He could go to Portland.
Yeah. I mean, if y'all are trying to make a deal with Portland, you don't want Dame.
That's not what I saw.
Yeah, I got you. And then what was the 3rd one that you saw?
Some BS Spurs one that was like just Keldon Johnson, McDermott, and multiple 1st-round picks. It's like, no, thank you. As much as I like Keldon Johnson and McDermott, actually. I wanted McDermott in the Derek White deal, if you remember me saying that. But
yeah,
just not enough.
You take the shooting, always.
Yeah.
But you have Gallinari, and he comes back healthy next season.
Which would have made a massive difference, honestly.
But okay. But if you keep Jaylen Brown and the Heat don't lose anyone and they get healthier, even though Lowry gets 1 year older, Kevin Love I don't really care about that. Because they're not really playing heavy minutes in the regular season or in the postseason. They're just additive pieces that step up when they need to, which they will continue to do until they retire, because that's just who they are. Those guys both have rings. And they were former All-Stars. And the Bucks lose Middleton. I think at that point it's a 3-headed monster in the East. The 76ers, I know that they have Nick Nurse. I don't trust that team. I don't trust that team as far as I can throw them. Okay. And especially if they lose James Harden, then I'll go out and straight up say that they're not as good as those other 3 teams. Then the Cavs still have room to grow, and they definitely need wing depth and wing help there. Unanswered questions. The Knicks don't have a star. They have Brunson. He's a star. He's not a superstar. And they don't have enough pieces around him. The Randall situation, RJ Randall, Brunson, that's not the trio that's going to get you past those top 3 teams.
Agreed.
And then everyone else can get better, but they're not going to be as good as those 3 teams. I mean, viably, like those 3 teams can compete for a championship in the East and win the East the next 2 years.
What do you think? At
least one more year.
I agree with all that. What do you think of then like Marcus Smart and Rob Will for like Miles Turner? Are we downgrading? Or is
maybe if you can get like a McConnell, if you can get a McConnell throw in that trade, because Pritchard's probably gone anyway. I know maybe you don't, just to have another guy who can go in and play defense.
Is it Duarte by low worth it or not even really?
Yeah. I mean, you tried to make it work with Nembhard. He just wasn't the guy at the time. Did you bring Nembhard back? Isn't he in Indiana?
Andrew Nembhard? Yeah.
Or not? No, sorry, not Nembhard.
No, he was the rookie last year with
who's your shooter? Who was the
Norwegian buyback with Aaron Nesmith?
With Nesmith.
I mean, I really wanted Nesmith to be good. I was bummed.
I mean, he played much better this season for the Pacers. He looked way more confident. The shot was there. Some flashes of what you guys saw in him when you originally drafted him.
Yeah, he was ripping more threes. Like he was given an opportunity. He had way more of a green light and way more minutes.
Of course. I mean,
he's playing 11 minutes a game last year. Yeah, he's playing 25 this year. I mean, something like that. I would be, and then we keep Jaylen and we get Miles Turner in the mix, who's still strong defensively, but it brings a lot more offensively than just a rim runner.
And you don't have to play like you're not worried about having to play Al more than 20 plus minutes in a playoff game.
Oh yeah, because you run Turner, Tatum, Brown, White, Brogdon,
White and Brogdon, yeah,
and
and
you're
and
and
Al
you're
can
in
come
good
off.
shape.
Al can come off the bench, and that's kind of where he feels like he's at now, at this point
Yeah, he shot the three at a too high of a clip
in the
for
regular season.
yeah
Well, I just also think like he's gotten older, and it was noticeable from a stamina standpoint in this playoff run.
yeah absolutely absolutely. All right, well I'm stoked. It's gonna be good finals, man. It's gonna be a
Let's
really really. You want to play a
let's get
game?
well, yeah, we can play a game. And we'll talk about the horns later today.
Yeah, we can do the horns
Okay.
later. We can cover the horns later.
Unfortunately, for anyone that's listening, well, go check out our Horns Up pod, Talking Texas. Typically, we have Nikki Snacks and Quan Cosby on. It'll probably just me and Josh today. But Ron Holland, who is a former commit to the Texas Longhorn basketball team, 5-star, not going to Arkansas, which we appreciate. One of our all-time rivals, going back to the Southwest Conference days. He's going straight to the G League. So, of all the places
I
to
hate the
go,
G League. I hate when players go to the G League. It's such a bummer.
it is a bummer, but I'm okay with it because he's not going to one of our rivals.
It's very true. Very, very true. All right. Well, I always give you guys the name game. I always put you on the spot. I always leave you hanging. You especially, I think maybe because people have such high, faith in your intellect. People give you a hard. People give you a hard time. People give you a hard
They
time.
overrate my takes, so they overrate my skills at being quick with the wit.
That they do. That they do. All right. You give me a name. You have 30 seconds ready.
I can get 30 seconds ready.
Yeah, get 30 seconds ready. You give me a name, first name, last name, some kind of name. And I'll give it my best go.
All right. Pulling up my timer. Okay. Josh, are you ready?
Yes.
Let me make sure I'm ready. Okay. Your name. I'm changing it. I'm changing it on the fly. Yeah. Okay. I got it. Ready?
Yes.
Your name is Tyler.
Tyler. Tyler. Tyler Sankin. Tyler Sankin on the Stars.
Yep.
Okay, nice. That's a disaster to start to begin with. Chris Tyler. I don't know if that's a name. Tyler Tyrone, Tyler Thomas, Tyler Jones, Tyler Lee, Tyler Anderson. Oh my God, it was tough. What did I miss? What are the good Tylers? I think I was.
What did you get? Were you just naming names?
Yeah, I think I had Tyler Anderson and Tyler Sangan.
Well, Tyler Harrow, right?
Yeah, Tyler Harrow would have been a good one.
Tyler. Steven Tyler. This might have been a harder one than I anticipated it was going to be.
Tyler Hansborough, Tyler Zeller, Tyler Johnson, Tyler Eulis. It would have been a good one 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Let me see if there was any football players. Now I'm curious.
Tyler Wilson.
I mean, okay, sure.
He.
Tyler Lockett, Tyler Boyd, Tyler Higbee.
Yeah,
Tyler
there's a lot.
There are
Eifert. You just went wrong sport first, I think.
Yeah, I just went wrong. I mean, the thing is like there were no.
There's actually multiple Tyler Johnsons. There's Tyler Johnson, the hockey player, and
yeah, hit one though.
The Hooper.
Isn't there a Tyler Johnson in the Bucks too? Receiver? Am I tripping? He went to Minnesota.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Tyler Johnson. Yeah, people are really high on him. Actually, they were
Tyler Glasnow, Tyler O'Neill, Chatwood, Clippard. Remember Tyler Clippard? Yeah.
Mm-mm.
You don't remember Tyler Clippard with the glasses?
No.
He was good. He's a reliever. You'll remember.
What about you remember Tyler Bray? the
Was
University of
that the
Tennessee quarterback.
Tennessee quarterback? Yeah.
Yeah.
Tyler's brutal. Jesus. All right, I'll take it to the dome though. I'll wear it. I'll wear that.
Yates.
Yeah, sure.
Oh,
Tyler
Tyler Green.
Tyler Green.
I mean, I don't know why you would know him. He's just a
No
random
way.
baseball player.
Tyler Clippard was he never played for the Rangers.
He was the Mets reliever.
Yeah, he did a stint, but he was mainly with Washington. He did do a stint in New York.
I remember him. Yeah.
He's an all-star.
Glass now.
Glasnow, yeah, that was a good. It's just like it's so.
That's one where there's not a lot of like heavy hitters where you like should.
Yes,
There's a lot of guys named Tyler, but not a ton that are like historical greats in basketball, baseball, NFL.
If you hit me with like Michael, I could have gone Michael.
Okay, but that's like the easiest name ever.
Michael Jordan, Michael Lorenzen, Miguel. I could have gone the Miguel route and really been cheap.
I think that doesn't count though.
Yeah,
just for future times where we play this game. I think you can't rip a Miguel on a Michael.
Yeah, I completely agree. All right, well, let's send everyone packing. You and I will hit horns later, but this is the Daily Strike. Are you still thinking of Tyler's? I saw
kind
you,
of.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. Tyler Freed.
Yeah.
Right?
Who's Tyler? Who's Freed?
Who's Tyler Freed? Is that a guy I know? That might be a guy. No, there's a guy named Tyler. Who is Tyler Freed? Why did I just say that?
Yeah, let's play next time. You know how we did actor or baseball player?
Is it my boy or a baseball player?
Yeah, kid from my high school or a baseball player.
Oh my god, that's great. I can play that with you right now.
That's so funny. That is so funny. We'll play it next time with Nick. Yeah, I'll prepare some. Cool. All right, fans out there, free throws, hit them. See ya next time. Daily Stripe. Welcome.
We outa.